The Economist.
To me, it's like this. To quote the great 19th century British philosopher Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. If you get them in so that they're enjoying it, then there's more and more time for them to absorb the actual point that you're trying to say. I'm Kevin Callaher. I'm the editorial cartoonist for the Economist magazine, but most people may know me better by my signature, which is Cal. The first cartoon I can remember drawing, which was fifth grade, music class. We had a nun who would sing in class with her eyes closed. So I would, draw her with her little button nose and her big habit, but her mouth, I drew the size of a battleship. I mean, it's this giant thing. But when the girl sitting next to me saw it, she grabbed it off my desk, had a giggle. As soon as it was circulating around the class, and I was an instant star until the nun got a hold of the cartoon. And that started down a long path of cartoons and interest in this profession. I went to Harvard University, and within a week of being at Harvard, I was drawing cartoons for the school newspaper and getting myself in trouble. Right after graduation, I spent the next couple months teaching basketball clinics and so on the south of London. But I was making money on the streets doing busking, street entertainment, put a hat out and entertain crowds. So I started looking for cartoon jobs in London. In the morning, I'd work in some menial task. And then in the afternoon, I'd take a train to London and visit different newspapers and publications. And I visited everybody. And the last people I saw was The Economist. So I go up to the art department, lay out these caricatures, and they showed interest for the first time. They said, "We would love you to come up next week on Wednesday for a one-day trial." So I go home, turn on the Newsnight, and they're interviewing the then Chancellor of the Exchequer for London, Denis Healey. Denis Healey, of course, was God's gift caricature as well. He had a round sort of tomato face. He had eyebrows that went to the ceiling, and he sort of little buck teeth, looked like a little rabbit. So I sat there in my, my flat sketching way. Denis Healey is a little practice. Next morning, had to be in London by 11. Sit up there, and they said, "Well, we would like to give you a trial. Could you please draw Denis Healey?" Who is the only British politician who I knew and had ever drawn before. And of course, he was so easy. And in 20 minutes, I'd whipped up this pencil sketch, and they were impressed. I was impressed. And that was 30 years ago. The then art director, Pip Piper. At that time, The Economist didn't even have a full-time art director. He would come in one day a week just to do the cover. I think did something very brave, because there was other talented artists out there who they could have hired. But he said that he saw potential in me. I'm very grateful for his input. Yeah, in 1980, I was commissioned to do my first cover for the magazine. And it was the first of over 100 covers that I've painted for The Economist over the years. And boy, I tell you what, I worked on that for hours and hours and days in anticipation that I might have this opportunity. There's several covers that I remember prominently over the years. One of the early covers that I did was one of Indira Gandhi as the goddess Kali. And the story behind this, which is kind of curious, is I had done a cartoon. It appeared on the cover of the magazine. But when the magazine arrived in India, all of the copies were then confiscated by the authorities because they thought this was an offensive picture. And that was, again, one of those sort of wake-up calls for me on just how powerful an image can be and how differently it can be perceived in different places. My most popular cartoon of all time. So the cartoon appears in the cover of The Economist. And within a week, I'm getting phone calls from around the world, stockbrokers. And all of them, of course, saying, this is exactly how it is. So in this cartoon, it's all about design and pacing as you bring your eye through it. When you're dealing in black and white, you realize that black is a very powerful, and so that you deposit your blacks in such a way to lead people along a path in your design. And then it goes here, and then it goes utterly mad. And then you also try to place your words or your wording in such ways that it's got a voice. It's got its own tone of voice. The nature of the lettering that you use changes the way that people perceive the words that are being said. You're building up. So if you say something italics, it seems a little bit more urgent. Do it in bold, it's louder. If you do something small within a large balloon, it's like somebody whispering. So you use all of these tools in order to get your pacing, your timing for your joke. Every Russian leader up to this time was someone who, was constantly frowning and wearing black all the time, and was a pretty miserable looking fellow. Gorbachev comes onto the scene. His sort of personality, I guess, sort of echoed his politics. He seemed to be a little bit more open, more accessible to the West, and so on. And so we did this cartoon cover where he was dressed as someone from Miami Vice. So for me to draw this, I actually went out and bought these clothes, got dressed up. My wife took a Polaroid, and I modeled. This is completely modeled on myself, although the car in the background is definitely not what my car was at the time. He's got the Miami Vice stubble. He's the man. And these are the 3 cartoons that took place right during the 2000 American presidential election. And what's so interesting about this is that I think it's the only time in the Economist's history that we've had 3 sort of cartoons consecutively on the cover. And I guess it was partly because this time in American history was like one giant cartoon, and it was only the best way to capture it was through cartoons. So the week before, I did a cartoon called Crunch Time, which is Gore and Bush trying to get America, and what clearly was going to be a close race. But the following week was crazy because when we went to press on Wednesday, nobody knew who was going to be president still. It was the day after the election. So I had done the cartoon for the magazine on the inside. They liked it so much, they said, let's throw it on the cover. And it's called Thriller. I think Gore looks a little bit more aloof, but he looks sort of confident. And Bush sort of, looks a little cocky, a little like a smart aleck, a smart ass. He looks, small little things that, again, going to the subliminal. You sort of sense it when you look at it. And then the following week, when we were still unsure what was going on, I was commissioned to do a cartoon about how crazy the American electoral system has become. And I did this sort of maddening, rusting machine, and it's sort of spewing out a ballot that didn't really quite make any sense. And it's called The Making of the President. 9/11 was a challenging time for just about everyone on the planet. To try to do a cartoon commentary that day was, to say the least, a challenging day for me. The most important part of the whole cartoon, believe it or not, is Liberty's right hand. That's where the whole emotion of the cartoon comes, I think. There's expression in every part of your body. There's expression in your fingers, the way you hold yourself. And ideally, what you try to do is maximize the potential for expression in your cartoon by looking at all the various parts of the person and then manipulating them to maximize the feeling that you want to get. And like a good movie, you'd like to feel that people can come back and revisit your cartoon. They've got the joke. They don't just leave immediately. They come back and they want to delve in it. Clearly, the signature of the artist is not just the signature that they might add to the bottom of their page. The whole cartoon should be representative, give a piece or part of them. And I throw myself into the cartoons. I throw myself into the characters to get their expressions, to get their body movement. My wife laughs because she'll walk into the studio, and if I'm drawing somebody frowning, I'm frowning. I'm pulling a face. It's what I call like method acting, and this is method cartooning. Being a political cartoonist means that you have to wear many hats. You are an artist, you're a satirist, and you're a journalist. And you're wearing all these hats and trying to get a job done on a very tight deadline. And I guess I've been doing it for about 30 years, and I can successfully call myself an editorial cartoonist. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That is pretty good.